Hello everybody, this is Jack Dennis and welcome to our fly fishing and tying channel. I hope you're all having a good start to the new year and out tying a lot of flies. We started a couple of weeks ago with our Jack Dennis and Friends fly tying session. Our first one was with Dave Allison, and I'm going to be showing you some from the past. One of the things I've been involved with my fly tying career is setting up fly tying theaters and been involved with the many conclaves that fly fishing groups and clubs have over the country. And they really highlight tyers that you may not have ever met. And one of the best ones is one in Idaho, both the Western Idaho Expo and the Eastern Idaho Expo, which is in Idaho Falls. They've been doing these fly tying get-togethers for a long time. We're talking over 30 years. So I want to do some highlights from some that I filmed in 2009 and 2010. And you'll get a chance to meet some names you know, and maybe some names you didn't know. And one of the nice things about tying at these expos is all the excitement and sounds of people going around telling lots and lots of fly fishing stories. Most of them may be exaggerated. But one of the nice things about the theater is you get a chance to listen to the tyers talk about their experiences and answer questions. I think you're going to enjoy them. We're going to start this week with several. We'll try to give you the most information. And I know some of you are going to say, wow, you know, I don't know about the materials. Well, these are really uncut. So, you know, you do your best on figuring it out. But I think you're going to enjoy the interaction with the crowd and with the tyers. And really uncut and I think extremely fun. Let's get going. Our next fly tyer is an Idaho native. He was born and raised on the Salmon River in central Idaho. Nate Bromley, at a very young age, started casting gray-hackled flies and hooked rainbows in Whitebird Creek. Nate remembers to this day the 14-inch fish that completely jumped out of the water with his fly hook in his mouth. He's been chasing fish and tying flies ever since that moment. For over 40 years, Nate has put a footprint along the shores of high mountain lakes, spring creeks, and tailwaters that led to the creation of his company, Dry Fly Innovations. You're going to enjoy his great wit, his excitement, and his patterns. He calls it fish magic. Take it away, Nate, and be sure to check him out on the website.
I'm Nate Bromley. I'm the owner of Dry Fly Innovations. Little background on our company. I've been dry fly fishing for roughly about 45 years. And in that time period, I've tied flies during that whole time period also. And it's always been the same way. It's always about the fishing has always driven the fly tying. The fly tying always followed the fishing. That's just pretty much the way it always happened. I don't know how many times in my younger life and still today, you're out there on an old river somewhere and there was a hatch happening and you got 18 boxes to choose from, and by golly, there was a color shade that just wasn't right on any of them. So, you know, you fell just a little bit short of tying having the right bug when you needed it. But you know what that always did? That always brought you back to the fly table, and it drove the other end of what it is that I would do. And we tie for fish. That's the whole company. That's our whole motto of our company is about catching fish. It's not being beautiful and it's not being showy. It's catching fish. So anyway, let's do this. The bug that we're going to tie next is what's called a searcher. Can you see the bug? Better yet, let's do it this way. This is what's called a searcher. We invented this pattern to do two things. It's a little bit like a Mayfly hatch. It's a little bit like a caddis coming out of a shuck. The new world of dry fly fishing should always include something that may entice a fish from maybe a couple of different directions. We do not even fish this bug in a hatch. We fish it open out of a hatch. There doesn't need to be any fish at the surface of the water. That's what this fly is built to do. It's built to catch fish out of the hatch. It looks enough like a caddis in a flared position or in a hatching position, and it looks a lot like what would be a flav, a beautiful green mayfly. You know, in the latter part of August and into September, you get these wonderful hatches of flavs. This bug is killer at that time in the hatch, but you can fish it blindly all summer long, and it does a super job of bringing fish out of the dark, I call it, luring something out that was never feeding before. We have local rivers that we fish on where you could be out there all day. On the low side, the South Fork in the canyon, you could be there all day and never see a fish at the surface, and have a 30, 40 fish day and never ever see a fish at the surface. But you do it with those kinds of bugs. So anyway, let's tie one of these little guys. The hook that we're using here is a 2312 Tiemco, and we're going to tie this on a size 16 hook. Whatever happened to just a really good old clamping mechanism here? That's my question. Alrighty. Now, always, the first turn of thread, we never think about it being important. It is extremely important. Your first turn of thread, it creates a measurement of where you want an abdomen and a thorax to confluence. So let's do that. And what we'll do is we'll start here. That's where I would like to see the transition point on this particular bug, about right there. And I'm bringing this a little further down the shank of the hook than what would normally be recommended. And there's a reason for that too. We're selling the bottom or the belly of a bug. That's what we're doing in this tie. All that supports it is just a wing. So what we're trying to do is have a wing hang the bug and then show off a thorax and an abdomen to a fish, belly down. That's the whole idea behind the tie. So let's clip this, and then we're going to use a small piece of mousse. And the reason I like to use mousse in a tie like this, it makes perfect, precise tails. It is always square, they are always perfect, and you can put just the right amount of flare in it rather than like using deer and getting horrendous flare. So anyway, let's move ahead. Take out all long hairs, clean up really, really good. We do not want a real heavy tail here, so I'm thinning this really big time. Now we're still working with a bug that we are eventually going to have. It's either going to be a mayfly or it's going to be a caddis. If it were a caddis, it'd be a little fatter, but we still have to lean it toward a mayfly on a fairly slender body. So my tail is going to be pretty sparse. I'll lay it out over the top and do a little measurement, and then we'll hold it in place. Now, if you just leave mousse alone and leave it lay, it will lay flat, straight, and it will not really give us the appearance that we're looking for. So we're going to do what's called stressing the hair. And stressing the hair means that you're going to take the hair, you're going to lift it like this, and then you're going to apply pressure down into the hair. And we're going to get this little flare that comes up. And this will adhere your gink much better. it will float the front end of the bug much better, and you get this little bit of a spiny look that comes out off the tail. So next step, let's go ahead and apply another biot. And if you ever had experience working with our company or bought any of our bugs, it's just almost no matter what you buy from us, the bodies and the abdomens will always be striated. We just believe it's a characteristic of bugs that you cannot live without. If you're going to make a bug, then we try to striate every bug that we do in our ties. Because if it's something that a fish is accustomed to seeing for every bug that floats by him, then we want to make sure that that appearance is something we tie into every bug that we do. So let's go ahead and take a biot, and this is a Batis biot, and we're going to go ahead and put it over the top like this, do a nice little turn on it like this. Now, we've got the biot in place now, and what we want to do is we want to get a clip on it now. Now, we talked about biot before, the ridge side of biot and the smooth side of biot. We're working with the smooth side of biot here again, so every turn that we make is going to create a reveal, and that reveal is going to make the striation within the body. If I were doing an emerger, I would want that leading edge to be a spine, but that's not the tie. Now to prep this, we should go ahead and do a little trim here on the end. And whenever you trim off, always make sure that you angle that trim to where there's a taper. And then you'll never have a ledge in your bug. First turn, always critical. And then we get a reveal. We get a reveal. Always overlapping and making sure that you get that stripe inside your tie. Always. Now, at this point in time, we want to do a nice high raise in this and cut right through the biot over the top. About 4 turns in is about right. Clip just a little bit high on the end of the biot, and what that's going to do is when it reveals over, it's going to make a taper into the balance, into the thorax of the bug. Always these little ridge edges of biots, they are always a little bit stubborn to lay down. So we're going to go clear to the end now to make sure nothing slips on the backside of our bug. Work it back up, and we're going to need to do just a little smoothing up on this so we can go ahead and get our positions for the next process in the bug. At about right there, and this is really critical, the positioning on this tie is really critical now. Where I have my thread is going to be a transition point from a wing to legs. And in order to get that in a perfect location, your thread has to be exactly in that spot. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're going to use black dyed elk hair. I don't like the flare. I do not like the flare in deer hair for this particular tie. And you get almost as good a float out of this with elk hair. So anyway, that's what we're going to use here. If you go through a lot of hair like we do, don't ever order hair online. You have got to be able to pick up the hair in your hand, and you have got to be able to look at the hair. Straight hair, there is no substitute for straight hair. And if you can't pick it up and if you can't feel it, don't buy it. And when you're looking at a piece of hair to buy, always look at the direction in which the spirals, or in the direction in which the hair is laying. If you see hair laying on pad and it's going any direction other than straight down the pad, don't buy that piece of hair. Your hair has got to be straight. It's got to be perfect. If you're going to make good bugs, you got to have straight hair to do it. So, now watch me whip up a batch of crooked hair here for you. Anyway. That looks pretty good. Now, this is what we're working with here, and I'm going to restack that because it just didn't quite get some of those tips as perfect as I'd like to see it. And one thing about working with our company and the 5 fly tires that tie for us, they have gotten to the point where they're about head shy of me because I am so particular about how those last turns of things are done. That they got to where they know that they got to deliver a perfect bug, or by golly, they're going to have a heck of a time selling it to old Uncle Brum. That's just the way it is. So anyway, let's take a look at this guy. Now that's a little more like what we're looking at. See how nice and straight the hair is there. Now, real critical to this, I have to visualize the length of the hair that I want right now. So I'm going to pinch it right there. And then I'm going to put it up over the top like this. Nice little wrap. Secure. Now, a little trick in working with hair and your stimulators and your caddis, you will always have perfect hair balanced on both sides if you raise the hair just a little bit at this point in time. See what I'm doing here is I'm raising it and I'm wrapping. And what that's ensuring is that there is going to be equal hair on both sides of the hook. And when I turn this into a comparadin and I fan it, then what it will do is it'll fan perfectly on both sides, and there'll be a perfect rudder on both sides of the bug. So that's the look that we're looking for. Now, here again, in order to plump the thorax like we would really like to and get the lift on the wing that we'd like to see, we've got to dub this bug. And in this case, what we're using is Batis dark green, or Batis superfine. And as always, when you're working with dub, the way you pull the dub will always be exactly the way the dub will apply to the thread. So you create the look of the dub when you pull the dub, because there's no changing it after you've pulled it out of the dispenser. So here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a piece of dub that is big on one end, small on the other. We want it to taper out as it goes into the eye. So anyway, we're just going to go ahead and work with it like it is right now. And I never use wax. And I never adhere anything to the thread. For nice tight bodies that you're working with Mayflies, I recommend superfine every time. It is a wonderful adherence to a piece of thread. It's tight, it's small, it is the perfect application for small, delicate bugs. So let's go ahead and begin to put this together now. I pull this forward and around, and forward and around. Now the idea here is I want my bug wing to stand up. I want that to stand up and be counted as a bug that would, a wing that would look a lot like a beautiful comparadin. So that's the look that we're looking for here. Now, we probably got that good enough on the back, so let's move it forward. Now, here's a little bit of a critical end in tying this bug. Whenever you have a whole bunch of hair hanging out on one end, and that hair is in a big old mess, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create legs of the bug, and I'm going to create it out of the hair stubs that are left on the tie. So in order to do that, I've got to be able to get in underneath, and I've got to separate out the amount of hair I want on either side of a leg. So I'm going to get in here, and I'm going to go like this. I'm going to take what I think to be, maybe 6-8, somewhere in the whereabouts of 6 to 8 hairs. And I'm just going to pull it real hard in this, not real hard, but just pull it back in this direction. And I'm going to hold that right there so it doesn't get back in the mix and mess me up. So then I'm going to go around on this side, we get a hold of this, and I'm going to pull this out on this side like this. So the part in the middle I want to get rid of, and the part on the sides I want to keep. So we lay the scissors real, be careful right here. If you cut too deep in there, you'll find your thread, and then the whole shebang falls apart. So I've been there before too. Now we got is one of the ugliest looking bugs you're ever going to see. The sucker looks like a dragonfly on steroids, is basically what he looks like. So we're going to take all of the stubs of the hair and we're going to strap it all back, and then we're going to begin working on the head. So pinch off right there and make sure you've got this baby in a nice little controllable scenario right there, and then we're just going to work this. Now, I didn't put quite enough dub on this particular tie, so I'm just one of those people that if it isn't right, then by golly, make it right. It's your bug and it's your work of art, so do that baby right. So I didn't get quite enough dub on there, and I'm going to fix the problem now. Now you want to overdo this with dub, but you do want that head to be just a little bit nicer head than what we're looking at there. So let's slide that back into place. Get your hair back again. And what you're looking for is that beautiful taper now. I want a taper that goes down into the eye of the hook. And notice how I've saved myself enough room to where I can do a really nice, beautiful head. And I also want there to be a transition that happens here. I want a green transition to go into a black head. And that's exactly the look that we've created there, a transition. So if we're dealing with the smartest fish on the darn planet, and he knows that the head of a bug is a different color than the thorax of the bug, then we want to fool that fish too. So let's do a half inch and we'll call this a done deal. Three half inches and a short tag. Now, there's no way that I can cut this in the direction. If I were at my fly tying table, I would swing the whole vise towards looking at me, straight at me, and then I would trim off the legs to where I knew I had them perfect on both sides. In this situation, I can't do that. The vise is turned away from me. I can't move it, so I'm going to do the best I can to trim this. And like I say, if it's not quite right, that's just the way it is. I'm sorry. So, can you see it? Can you see it? You know, for a guess, it wasn't bad. Now, there's one additional thing that we have to do to the bug now. I got to get him off of here. Remember I told you the comparidon look? And anytime you deal with a comparidon, jeez, what's the deal with that? Anytime you have a comparidon, you have to flare the hair of the bug. And I'm going to try to do that for you as you're looking. See how tight my little tie is on the hair? And see how straight up it is, straight down the shank of the hook? Can everyone see that? Okay? Okay, good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hold this in place for you. You still can see it? Now, I'll pull my scissors off. I'm accustomed to always having a pair of scissors attached to me some way or another. But anyway, I'm going to hold that there, and I'm going to go do this. Now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to take the legs, and we're going to move those forward to where they flare forward and splay. And that's almost the exact look that we want in that bug. See the flare in the wing on that? what that does is creates a rudder on either side of the bug. So this particular fly will actually be belly down in the water, and it will be supported by the wing on either side because they're creating a rudder. Now, the hair here could be a little bit, I could work with this a little more and make it absolutely perfect, but that in essence is the tie that we're looking for right there. If you were looking on our category to own this particular bug, this would be under a category of searchers. We tie this in 7 different colors to fish a lot of different water for the same purpose. We never cast it in a hatch, and what we do is search holding water for fish with the bug. It's a tremendous bug in a calabatus and a PMD, in a lot of different scenarios also, at about this size. So anyway, that is a searcher, a black searcher. Does anybody have the time? Is it 10? Am I done?
You can't be. I think we're just about out of tape too.
Okay, okay. I have a couple of other bugs that I'll show you. I won't get to tie them for you today, but I'll show you on the camera the bugs that we were going to do.
Before you do that,
Okay.
let me, Jack Dennis is filming this. He just put out a video on all the tires, and for $25 you can buy it, pick it up locally at Cabela's or Idaho or anything. Or for $30 they'll mail it. Just fill this out and pay for it up on the front. Okay.
All right, just to finish up, and we'll get all of our gear off the table for the next tire, but here's what I'd like to show you. I'd like to show you 2 bugs. This is what's called a black gold stimulator. We tie our stimulators different in our company, a lot more sparse than most people. We don't overdub it, and we do not over decorate it. It has a perfect silhouette in it, and we don't add anything to take anything away from that. This is a black gold stimulator that cannot be purchased anywhere else on the planet but I think our company. But if you're a tyer, this is a bug that would be a necessity in your fly box. Small in the winter, big in the spring. We tie this in about all sizes on a 2312 Tiemco, from a 16 all the way up to a 6. You can fish it in a stonefly hatch, you can fish it in a green drake hatch, and you can fish it blindly in open water. A fantastic stimulator. This is our #1 selling fly, and at this point in time it is being fished on almost every continent on this planet. And we get raving reviews on this particular tie. So a black gold stimulator. If you would like some ingredients on how to tie this, you feel free to contact us at any time, and I would help you on this tie. The other bug I want to show you very quickly that we would have tied here would be a caddis. This is what's called an emperor caddis. This is a modification from a harrop tie. And what we've done is we've made it a real caddis with antennas that you see that's coming out the front. And you'll notice the underbody of the bug. It's done with biot. That's a goose biot. You can see the black and white striations that's placed underneath this particular bug. Now you can see the silhouette of what that bug looks like. This is a prolific fish catching machine in a caddis. And this would be, we tie this guy in about 6 different colors also. But this is what's called an emperor caddis. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me for an hour. It was great to have you. Thank you. Oh, you bet. Hey, any of these bugs you'd like to take a closer look at, Duke, feel free to come on up and you can take a peek at them.
You just missed the wing on that, too.
No, actually it's black dyed elk hair. This same stuff right there.
Okay, same with the tail, or do you use moose?
No,
on the
I use
tail?
moose on the tail. Yeah, sure do. Just because it's so beautiful, so straight, and can be flared so nicely. Here's some other bugs that we.
Same color hackle all the way through it.
That is grizzly. Is exactly what it is. You bet.
What's the wing on? Is it Xylon?
No, actually it's CDC, and there's Xylon underneath it.